Thank you, Martin. Very excited to be here today, seeing you all here, and looking forward to very interesting sessions. My name is Jerker Lessing. As Martin said, I'm adjunct professor here at Stanford, but I also work as an independent consultant and advisor to companies like yours. It's been very interesting. I've done this for almost 25 years now in different roles, and it keeps getting more and more interesting, I think, for every year. So excited to kick this day off. The first session, we will have three very interesting and successful companies and people, persons talking about that. We will hear about three different building systems, three different business models, and three different production systems. But I will be listening also after similarities, common ground for creating successful companies, successful business, growth, and healthy organizations and healthy business. So with that, I'd like to welcome our first speaker, Arlan Collins, CEO and co-founder of SLI, Sustainable Living Innovations. Welcome, Arlan. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks to the entire ICF team for including us in this event. We've been at our journey for 16 years. Prior to that, I had achieved 30 years as a practicing architect, so I'm 46 years into this problem called construction. My partner and I started this company right as we entered the Great Recession. I'd read an article that the best innovation to ever come out of Detroit happened during the Great Depression, and so we thought, let's go. And boy, were we not prepared for what happened next. Sustainable Innovations is a company that really launched in 2008, and we coined a lot of phrases, but one of them was, we're going to take down the whole problem. We're going to tackle 100% of a building. And so we did that. We coined this phrase, half the water, half the energy, half the time, in a 5-star hotel living experience. We're going to make parts, not space. And we're going to figure this out pretty quickly and make some really great things happen. The other thing that we did, being architects and having put up a lot of high-rise buildings and a lot of mixed-use buildings, is we were fanatical about the product. We believed that this whole industry is really adjunct piece of the real estate industry. And if you can't add value to the real estate industry, you've got, at least from our perspective, it's a really tough road, and it's even tough if you can. So our product was, we tried to tie it to human health, natural light in every room, easy access to the outdoors, very low environmental impact, 9-foot ceilings, world-class acoustics, latest technology. Who wouldn't want that at below market price? We thought everybody would. And so we spent a decade on the actual space in which the people live. And that proved out to be a really good part of what we have accomplished. The other thing we did is we started with high rises. The way the building code works in the United States, if you come up with something really clever that you can pull off at 65 feet, you can't pull that same building off at 125 feet. And if you jump over 125 feet, you've got to change it again to get to 50 stories. So we started with high rise, which was the most complex problem. It's also the easiest to compete with. Why? Because they're super expensive, they're super slow, and it's a disaster to deliver a high-rise building in over a 5-year cycle. And so that was our target. We started there, and we've essentially stayed there. We all had another insight that we could walk our way down. If we started with high-rise type 1 construction, we could walk our way down to a 65-foot high building by deleting things, and that turned out to be exactly true. So we can build now a 65-foot tall building out of non-combustible construction, and we can do it at less cost than wood. So that turned out to be a really good thing to start to hang on to. Okay, we have a corporate video, which will keep me from talking for 4 minutes. So we'll spool this up. It'll give you a feel for how we make this stuff and how it goes together, et cetera, et cetera. So roll them.
Things just take too long, too inefficient. Our industry has said for the last 75 years there should be a way to manufacture a building, but no one's been able to pull it off. How do you make parts in a manufactured environment that can be assembled in the field as a building? That was a direction we chose, and it's turned out to be the right choice.
The acoustics, the fire, the mechanical systems, the electrical systems, every system that's required in an apartment is manufactured on that panel in our factory as a fully integrated part. That's never been done.
It's a straightforward kit of parts that go together in the field. It's simple, it's repeatable. SLI's technology allows us to take that and transfer it to other markets.
An apartment wall that's built in the field can take months. In the SLI factory, we've manufactured all the components, and that same wall can be assembled in a matter of hours.
Conventional buildings take months, if not years, to get to costing and schedule. Because we have a catalog of parts, I'm able to drag and drop those same units and pieces and design an SLI building in a matter of hours. There's no comparison.
SLI has a patent portfolio consisting of 165 patents all around the world.
At full capacity, our Tacoma factory will employ 60 people. That will allow us to build a 120-unit apartment every month.
Much like a car going down an assembly line, our panel system goes down an assembly line. We're cleaner, safer, and faster.
Their supply chain feeds their factory, feeds their panels, feeds their buildings, feeds their crews who go out and build it on site and hand the keys to the owner. That's a very different model and a very different paradigm than the traditional construction paradigm.
We've been waiting to celebrate this for a long time. This building is 100% electric, powered by solar power. You could not build this building in a traditional way.
303 Battery, an SLI project that we're invested in, is the world's first net zero energy multifamily tower. Their solutions are reality, and more sustainable buildings are coming out of the ground as we speak.
This is going to change construction, and that doesn't happen very often.
And that's just the beginning. This building has 5,000 internet data points in it. That data will allow us to improve our products, improve our systems, and do even better.
This project, 303 Battery, is leading the way to a net zero future for multifamily housing.
The built environment is one of the biggest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions. When we looked at SLI's materials and process, we knew right away that their environmental performance was transformational.
SLI's technology allows us to build some of the highest performing, lowest GHG or greenhouse gas buildings in the world.
We're talking about being able to build our infrastructure in an entirely different way. Again, in an industry that hasn't changed a lot and is ripe for change and ripe for disruption. And I think the timing is tremendous for SLI.
Homelessness is one of the biggest problems we face in this country, and SLI's technology is leading the way with a project that we're currently under construction with. Downtown Emergency Service Centers, a local not-for-profit, along with the City of Seattle, selected SLI to build a 124-unit building. We're absolutely grateful that we will deliver safe, healthy, sustainable housing for those who have not been able to find supportive housing in our community. The people that work here, people that buy our buildings, the people that live in our buildings, they all should be better off because of what we do. That's our hope. Finishing 303 Battery will be a huge accomplishment for our company and for our technology. Welcome to a new way of living made possible by a new way of building. We're not just an idea or a notion. We're a growing technology company that is changing the way buildings are designed, developed, and delivered.
Okay, so I'll do a real quick history of how this played itself out and kind of talk about what worked and what didn't really quickly. 2008 to 2011, we pulled off our first prototype. 3 years. You see the pictures of it. And we achieved the first complete building patent ever issued in the United States, and I believe it's still, to this day, the only patent ever issued for an entire building system in this country. This one, 3,000 people came to see it. 3,000 people thought it was really great, and nobody bought it. So that's the punchline on that. The parts, the idea was right, the space was right, everything about it was good to go. The parts weren't right, the costs weren't right, and so back to the drawing board. 2011 to 2015, we completed our first building in which people live. 5-story building. It's actually a high-rise building in terms of its bones and its pieces. It was 6 months to build. It used 60% less energy. It achieved 20% above market rates. It sold for 2 years later for 35% more than it cost, and so we consider this a real touchdown. Our product actually can make money. And you can kind of see how it comes together. The first one was, thank you, 20 feet deep. This one was 23 feet deep, and the next one you'll see was 26 feet deep. So we were all the time adjusting ourselves to the market and what the market needs in order to make real estate work. I won't go deep into the technology of all this, but we just put our head down and figured out how to build this stuff with basically stuff you can buy in a hardware store. That's the only way we could figure out how to make it cost effective, is to make it simple. And when you make it simple, you can buy stuff and screw it to the wall, and so we coined the phrase chassis and bolt-ons. That seems to be a common theme, that there's a chassis which has got fewer parts and fewer screws, and then the bolt-ons are programmatic related, whereas the chassis is really driven by the height of the building. 303 battery, the world's first zero net energy multifamily high-rise. 112 stories, finished in September of last year. And it proves that the space in which we created for people to live in absolutely is second to none. It's phenomenal. When people walk into this building, they go, wow, because of where they get to live, not because of how it was made. We coined a phrase also that after it's made, nobody really cares how it's made, so that's all for us to get excited about, but the market doesn't actually care. They care what they get. So here's how it works. We erect the panels. That goes very fast, 50 a day. An apartment has 10 panels in total when you count the corridors and the cores and the stairs and all the pieces and parts. So you can put up 5 apartments a day in terms of the erection cycle. Once it's erected, that's the picture on the far, let's see, on this side, on the left. Once it's erected, you do connections. There's 56 steps to complete it so that it looks like the picture on the right. The idea that we could walk ourselves down from high-rise to a load-bearing building and compete with wood turned out to be true. And this is a building that the video talked about at Burbage Place. There's 124 homeless people that now live in this building. This is version 7. The prototype was version 1, so those are all complete patent sets. I'm not sure we needed to do that. Gives us lots of patents. None of them are overly successful, but it seemed to be something that wasn't all that expensive to get, and we built a really great backlog of technology. And this building also has got 70% less energy and all the things that our technology allows us to do. This is version 10, so this is next up, building in LA. It's the first phase of 1,600 units, and it may or may not be net zero, depending on the owner's budget. But now, at this point, at version 10, we're actually finally below market cost. So whether it's a high-rise building or a mid-rise building or a low-rise building that's made out of wood, we're less cost, and we're about 40% less time. And then the environmental footprint of that building is up to the decision, up to our customer to decide how much of that they would like to see in their building. So, what did we learn? 16 years and 16 minutes. Choosing to create a better building was actually we believed on day one we would live or die by the quality of the product that people lived in, and what it was like to own that asset. We chose to build parts, not space, because factories for parts or space is expensive. We didn't have any money. And we were willing to fill the gaps. So we became a developer, we became a contractor. Whenever the market wouldn't help us, we did it ourselves. That was very successful. We stayed small for a decade. We spent 10 years figuring out the space with an architectural bent. We hired consultants that would do what we asked them to do with feedback, but we were the drivers of the bus because everybody likes to change the rules, and we wouldn't let that happen. So we stayed small and we worked on the space. Starting with the hardest problem first was proved insightful. We had great partners, we have great investors, and we stayed focused on the product. And to this day, we're still driving cost, and we're still driving what people live in. So that's the SLI story in a very short period of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arlan. Very interesting, and I think this list will have the potential to be a very, very important list to spread some knowledge and some advice to others. So thanks a lot. Our second speaker is Rech from Digital Building Components. Welcome, Richard. Richard is the installation team lead with at DBC, but with a background from DPR. So very welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. My name is Richard Rech. I do work for both Digital Building Components and SurePods. It's going to be the other company that we're talking about, so you can take your numbers from 3 to 4 companies. I'm part of the leadership team. A little bit about me is my background's coming from the field. So I used to be a framer to a superintendent, estimator. So that's the perspective I'm coming at you with as we get into our journey through, not going to say prefabrication, I'm going to say industrialized construction. Before I get into the slides, I did learn something already, right? We're here to learn. I should have brought a video because that was a good move. Get a little break in the action. All right, so really starting through our construction journey. So SurePods and Digital Building Components are a part of DPR construction. So those who aren't familiar, it's a global general contractor builder who actually started here in the Bay Area in Redwood City over 35 years ago. And one of our strategic areas of growth and focus is prefabrication, going to say, because that's what we use, but also getting into industrialized construction. How do we blend manufacturing into our construction processes? So that's why we exist, both SurePods and Digital Building Components. And if I slip in a DBC, that's Digital Building Components. We like to shorten everything we do into 3 letters. So that's why we are here, like I said. We see that our ability to grow and to execute our projects and to lead the way into the industry's future is to lean into these solutions, right? To change the way we deliver projects. So SurePods is a bathroom pod manufacturer, so more of a volumetric modular type approach. We've got 2 facilities. One is in Orlando, Florida, and the other one is in Phoenix, Arizona, which is shared with Digital Building Components. And so in those 2 facilities, that's where we build our modules. The same bathroom going down the line could be 250 of them, 800 of them, depending on the project that we're working on. In the DBC side, or Digital Building Component side, we are a cold form steel panelized construction company. So we build exterior panels made from cold form steel, or typical metal stud framing, and we sheathe it, waterproof it, put on finishes, everything from MCM panels to IMPs, which is insulated metal panels. We also put EIFS and integral windows into our systems. So today, talking about long-term success is really focusing on where we came from, right? This has been a journey for us. It hasn't been easy. I think, from the start it was, yeah, we can build buildings. We build buildings everywhere. Now let's just go do it under a roof in a different setting. No problems, right? Not so easy. We've had our fair share of lessons learned, and that's how we're getting better. But we're not leaning out of that. We're actually leaning into it. So the first focus of what's our steps to get to the end goal and the end game. So we start with design. We're going to be talking a lot about design today, like was previously mentioned. But our design has to be a little selfish when we're getting into industrialized construction and taking construction practices into the manufacturing setting. And so that selfishness is, we have to understand what our throughputs are. What are we doing for cycle counts? Productivity in a warehouse, in a manufacturing setting is different than on a job site. And so some of that design decisions, architects, engineers, owners might not like us as much because we make it a little more challenging up front. And what's important in that step is early decisions. Right? If you guys take something away from me being up here, is driving industrialized construction to be successful is early decisions to start the process. It's never good when you got DBC or SurePods or any offsite manufacturer calling saying, you got to answer my question or tomorrow you're not getting what you're asking for, because that means we're too late. So that part, one out of step 4, is crucial to success and what we've seen historically through our journey. Then we get into production, right? So all that design effort really leads into talking to our systems, right? On our plant floors, our roll formers, our CNC machines, our screw bridges, our robots, all of the steps in that process that you guys can, I'm sure, mentally picture on a manufacturing facility. That's where we really hit the ground running and hit our production. Then delivery. Seems pretty simple, right? Things get delivered all the time to job sites, but this is different. Right? It's something you have to think about in a different mindset than traditional construction. We're all used to giant pieces of steel showing up or big air handler units. What we're not used to is 700 bathroom pods. Usually it's coming in kit of parts or on small bobtail trucks, going up the man lift, getting into the project. This is a whole different delivery method that if you're not ready for it, it can really mess up the project and all be for nothing if it doesn't go as planned, right? So all of that upfront design, logistics planning doesn't go well unless that delivery piece gets really dialed in. And then the installation of it too. It's different. It's a different process. There's different preps that you have to do to be ready for this installation. And this is where we got to prove ourselves too, right? That we're not just designing in a vacuum, building in a warehouse that nobody sees. Right? This thing shows up, it's got to be ready to be plugged into and be a solution to the project delivery and add value. If we're not adding value, we're not getting the phone call for the next one. So we've got to show that this is something that we're going to lean into and provide value across the industry. So the first part is bathroom pods. Bathrooms have been being built for a long time, say millennia. And the general idea is pretty simple, right? 4 walls, hopefully, and some plumbing. That's how they started. And so for many, many years, right, up until maybe 30 or 40 ago, it's been built the same way, right? On-site, step by step, trade by trade, skilled process by skilled process. So what we saw as an opportunity to lean into something different, right? So if you think about a bathroom nowadays, a lot goes into that bathroom. You've got walls to frame, drywall to hang, waterproofing, plumbing, electrical, mechanical, and you get into epoxy systems, tile, grout, sealants, caulk joints, paint, hanging the mirror, all of these things that seem simple if you're just talking about a bathroom, but it's a lot of parts and pieces and processes and people that go into that piece of the building. So our idea at SurePod started 20 years ago was how do we simplify that process? How do we put it all under one roof that we can control? And not control in a bad way, like we don't want people to know what's going on and we need to have every piece, but really, creating an environment where it can be built better, right? And provide the most value to the project. And so it's been, started as a journey of, hey, we can build buildings, we can build pods, no problem. Let's just lean in, do what we've always done, but that's not the truth. We need to lean into more of an IC mindset to make it happen and make it go well. Not just construction under a roof off-site, it's actually a manufacturing process. And so that's how we realize the value. So that second point up there is really about, what kind of value are we bringing? It's not just a quicker built bathroom, right? There's quality components to it that we've leaned into. There's a safety component, right? We're reducing the risk on the project by putting people in a factory environment, paying attention to ergonomics, paying attention to the environment around them, dust control, all the things that on a project site are risky. Right? People come up and they're exposed to risks every day. So all of these processes and steps are the industrialized construction process. It's not just, hey, you got a pod. No, you got to think of the whole picture of the people doing the work, of the design like we talked about. So really leaning into the overall process we've found is really important. And then our next evolution over the past 3 to 4 years is we started as, really getting into hospitality, so big hotels, residential, student housing buildings that are very repeatable. And the next evolution that we've really leaned into is the healthcare market, which is complicated. Right? There's a lot that goes into every single healthcare system, from specifications to user needs, end user goals. What does this bathroom pod need to do? And so it's a longer, more involved process from design through manufacturing to delivery and install, but we've seen it provides more value to projects. So the other side is our digital building components, right? So this journey is a little different. I forgot to mention, so SurePods has been in business for about 20 years making bathroom pods. It's the longest tenured bathroom manufacturer in the US. Luckily, we've gotten one job in the Caribbean before my time, so I didn't get to get on the boat to send pods across the sea, but we got there. Digital building components is more of an in-house, organically grown company. As builders and construction folks, we think, hey, we got it all figured out, right? We're gonna muscle through things. We got 30 years of experience. It's building walls. What can be so hard? And we took the people who can do this and put them under a roof and said, figure it out. And that's not as simple as it sounds. And so we had our lessons learned. We figured out that, yeah, you can build wall panels, you can be successful, but is it really to the mindset of manufacturing and construction blended together? And that's no easy task. And so we took 30 years of experience from folks in the field, put them in this environment, and trying to continue to give tools to those folks that can continue to push the evolution of what we do. And that means teaming up with manufacturing experts, not just construction people. And that's been where we've seen success. We're still learning, we're still investing, and not just from a cost perspective, but from a time, effort, I would say blood, sweat, and tears to get there. It's not simple. It's not easy. It's not just push the print button because we have technology and manufacturing processes in place. We have to lean in order to make it work. And so the last one is really worrying about and leaning into design and engineering balances that drive into industrialized construction standards. Because that's where there's a lot of tradition, there's a lot of history in construction, and we're changing what that means and how we build in different environments. So what does it look like? Here's some snapshots of our production floors. Not only do we have to build what we say we're gonna build, we have to do it in an efficient manner. So we think about different factors than we do on a construction site, right? We can't just muscle through these obstacles. We have to have throughput. We have to have a nice flow to what we do. And that's different for a lot of people who have cut their teeth out on job sites. It's a totally different environment. And so we've struggled to get there, but we have gotten there. And that's through discipline, through diligence, to realizing we don't have it figured out, and accepting help from the manufacturing side of construction. And so that's where you can see, we are building things that you would see on a job site, but it's organized, it's clean. You can actually get to the production levels that you're looking for, and that's where we can provide the value, not only to the project, but to the people doing the work. My background coming from the field, that part's really important. That not only showing that we can build differently, but we can take care of the people who are doing the actual building. Folks that know they're getting 8 hours a day every day because weather isn't an issue, right? The safety part of this is huge to us, right? That there's an ability to de-risk what people do every day, right? To make ends meet for their families, to provide for themselves. This is where it happens in a spot that's consistent, can create careers for people. So when we look at industrialized construction, the challenge, and what I put out to everybody here, is it's not just about the thing all the time, right? It's about the people doing it. And we're all in this room because we're excited about it, right? We think it's what we need to be doing as an industry, but think about the people who actually need to build these things. We need them to, right? We can design it, we can think about it, we can plan for it, but without the people to do the actual work, we're stuck, yeah? So that's part of the balance when we say construction and manufacturing together. That's the people part of what we do. All right, so where are we going? Long-term success. As a construction company, rooted in DPR construction, that's what we think of when we build things, when we go through the process. Well, we need technology to take us to the next step, right? And so we're leaning into things like an ERP system through Dynamics, smart sheets, ACC build. We're also, coming up with our own. What do we need to do to be most successful internally to our company? That roadmap or workflow over there for SurePods, that's a lot, right? A lot of colors, a lot of arrows, which can be very confusing. So we're trying to simplify what we do and make it understandable. Because if it's not understandable, it's all for nothing, right? Just buy the stuff, build it on site, and move on with life. But we're trying to really lean into what this means for our business, for the industry, so it can be simplified and more people can do it. We're not trying to keep the cards close to us. It's about pushing the industry is what we believe in. Another long-term goal, or long-term goals, on the left, continue to evolve. I think as construction industry, we're slow to evolve, and we're trying to push that forward, right? One of our core values as a company is ever forward. So what are we doing different? What are we doing to make this process better and to make it better for our people? Like I said, that's our number one goal, is to make this process better. And not getting stuck in our traditional ways. I've been building it this long for 40 years. What do you mean, new kid? You can't tell me what to do. So we don't want that mindset. And I think that's a big part, again, of why we're here today. And then we need to train our construction employees in manufacturing processes. And the opposite's true, going from a manufacturing mindset into construction. So really trying to create that marriage and the balance between it. Because we are so deep-rooted in construction, it's hard for us, right, to look in the mirror and say, are we changing as a business and as a company? And I don't think we're fundamentally changing, but we're really trying to understand how we change in the right way and find that balance. Design, like I said, we're going to hear a lot of design talk today and this afternoon, and really, how do we lean into it as the folks doing the actual building and not being just, this hard, fast walls. Give me your design, we'll figure it out. It's really a collaboration and an effort. And then staying disciplined and balance is huge to us. So the balance of construction versus manufacturing is also, you see that bar graph there, that's our framing capacity for one of our plants, right? Anybody who's been in construction for a while knows schedules change, things move, you have delays, RFIs, permitting issues, right? The list is endless. And so from a manufacturing standpoint, you want throughput, right? A constant stream of Tesla cars coming off the line right into the sales room, right? For us, that's hard because things change on a dime, by the day, the hour, the minute. And so we're up against this up and down graph to be able to level set what we do. We don't have it figured out. That was last week's framing capacity, right? We're gonna have a high and then a low and then a real big high. And so that's part of the taking care of people that we do as well. It's like we can't hire and lay off and hire and lay off, and we're losing that skill set in what we do as a company. And so balance is a huge tagline and thing that we're leaning into. So that's the end of my time, but I want to say I hope you walk away from this thinking about the people doing what we are talking about today. Personally, it's a big part of what we do at DBC InsurePods, and with that mindset, it can change a lot. And so the challenge is, you know, we can talk through processes and steps and everything else, but who's actually doing that work is just as important as that end result. Thanks.
Thank you, Richard. Very interesting. I heard you say it's not easy, and I think we are a lot of people here that can approve that no, this is not easy, but we didn't hear anyone say that it was going to be easy. But what I also heard you say was that it's super important to make it understandable. And I think that those are two really good points. It's not easy, but if we can try to make it as understandable as possible, then we have a good shot. Thanks a lot for that. So next speaker is Stefan Lindbäck, a good friend of mine since I think almost 20 years. Stefan is the CEO of Lindbäcks Group, and yes, it's not a coincidence, I think, that Stefan's last name is Lindbäck, and the company's name is also Lindbäck, because Stefan is the fourth generation of the family company leaders, leading one of the leading industrialized construction companies in Sweden, and I would argue definitely in Europe, with very long-term success. So super welcome, Stefan. Floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here. I'm trying to keep my quite quick. I have many slides, but I will go through them quite quick. So I'm going to try to tell you who we are, what we do, how we do it, and why we are doing it. Somebody must have read that sometime, and how can you address that issue to make it not be like that? I'm trying to talk and describe, as I mentioned, our way of dealing with that question, because it is a stigma all over the world, I would say. For you in here, maybe it's not a question because you're a believer, but others are not. As Jerker told you, the company is about 100 years old, and we started in a very small town outside Piteå in northern part of Sweden, and this is the owner group. So we are 6 people owning the company. So generation 3 and 4. What we do multi-story buildings, 2 to 8 stories, and they can be used in different ways, as you see. And we don't produce any commercial facilities, only places for living. I will show a short video of a little bit describes the story and the production.
So how do we, as the largest manufacturer of wood-frame multifamily modular buildings in Sweden, construct our buildings? To answer that question, we need to revisit history. The story began with a local sawmill 100 years ago, in a small village outside Piteå in the very north of Sweden. Through innovation over many decades, the company always pushed the boundaries in construction. Today, the Lindbäcks family business is one of the world's finest manufacturers of wood frame multi-family modular buildings. We want to industrialize construction, not architecture. We build with wood harvested close to the Arctic Circle. Wood is the only truly renewable building material, and it binds carbon dioxide, which results in a low carbon footprint. And we never build faster than the wood grows. This makes wood the natural choice for us who are committed to sustainable construction. We offer a fully integrated solution where we take responsibility for the entire building process. This results in secured costs, product quality, and delivery time. Moreover, it enables flexibility in building layouts and beautiful architecture. We believe in customer collaboration in early project stages. Our project developers and architects create the framework for utilizing the building system optimally for the project to reflect customer needs in design, architecture, and quality. Then, the full design scope is coordinated into a program. Decisions on finishes, FF&E, and options are made. We purchase materials and oversee the last details before the manufacturing process starts. The modules are built in the protected environment of a factory, step by step, along our production lines. Floors, walls, and ceilings are constructed, and the panels are assembled into modules that can contain one or several rooms to form a living room. Our bathroom pods are lifted into position. The pods are built in composite materials by our subsidiary, Podcom. We install the kitchens and the flooring. Finally, we inspect the module to ensure it meets the highest quality standards. In the final step, the modules are sent to automated storage. Modules are picked up by a self-driving forklift, loading the trucks. Finally, it's time to deliver to the building site. Ahead of the on-site assembly, the foundation needs to be complete and the slab surveyed. The roof sections are built on-site and craned in position. The industrialized construction process continues with setting the modules, which is meticulously prepared to ensure it's timely and precise. The modules are protected from the elements during transportation and are craned directly from the truck onto the structure. We aim to seal the envelope as quickly as possible. We connect the modules and install mechanical, electrical, and plumbing services to complete the building. On the exterior, we finish the roofing and the facade, and install balconies and finish the landscaping. At this point, the tenants can move in. Innovation development and continuous improvements are important to us. And as a customer, you are always welcome with thoughts and questions. You can trust that we will support you through the entire building process. Thanks to our industrialized construction process, we build resource-efficient, eco-friendly, and cost-efficient. We use industrialized construction in wood because we believe in sustainable living for all.
That was a short movie showing a little bit how we do the things we do. And as many of you mentioned yesterday, the role models for producing more efficient is often automotive industry, and we did adapt that thinking also but not just the factory part. You have to think from the customer to the end user, from how to address a proper way of doing things. And it doesn't matter if you look from the top or from the bottom. You need to have a system to work together. And for example, if there is a deviation occurring, we need to do stop coding. And addressing the stop coding to one of the 4 M's, man, machine, method, or material. So we have a good source of improvements. So that's very important to be stable to the principles, and very important to have a lean attitude regarding construction. And when we say affordable, what do we mean with that? It's not building a cheap product. It has to be a solid and a good building. It's supposed to stand there for 50 or 100 years. And we think that having a fast flow is crucial. For example, we have a takt time of 30 minutes when we go full speed in the factory. So every 30 minutes we produce one unit. So therefore we have a capacity of about 3,800 units per year, equals to about 2,000 apartments. And it's also important to take in consideration the profits of being on the roof with a building site. It's secure, it's quick, and you have the tools where you left them when you went home. It's also important to relate to the people who you're working with. So when you talk about continuous improvement, it's to helping each other. As the previous speaker mentioned about the people thing, it's very, very important. And also we took the choice to use wood as material for the structure. And you can have others also, but we chose wood. It's renewable, it's very close by, and it's easy to come over, quite sturdy for its weight. So we think that's very important. When we talk about architectural freedom, many people think that if you're working with industrialized building, it's tricky to address the architectural part. Our part in the building process is mainly to be a turnkey provider. So we are not buyers of the projects. We are supplying it to other buyers, to other customers. So when we talk with the customer in the beginning, we have our own architects in the company, and they can talk with the customer's architect on the architect language. And it's not the same as construction language. But our architects has the technical, the manual, architect manual in the backbone. So they know the pros and cons, what you need to address in order to make the project fly. And the technical platform it's the people, it's the machinery, it's the technical solutions, it is the time flow, it is the backbone for what we do. And with that in manual, with the technical platform, we have enough information to produce the products and assembly it on site. And I will show you some reference projects, and they all done in the same factory, and so they can look very different. For example, we have rendered facades, so you can have facades with brick, or you can have sheeting, or you can have wood as facade. It doesn't matter. There are three things I would like you to remember, and the three last slides. And we talk about how to, often we hear, when we go in a factory with things, it will get cheap because we have set certain standards and so on. But if you're competing with a customer, you're competing with another general contractor, and you're offering a bid to a customer, and you have an offer consisting of 50 million or whatever it is, and the competitor from the traditional way of building has an offer for 45 million. The customer tends to choose the cheaper one. But when we talk about these three things that you need to have in consideration, you need to remove some costs on the buyer's part. For example, cost for money. We take a payment very, very late in the process. They pay 80% of the cost, very close to the time where they can rent out or sell the project. So the cost for money is lower. And also the engagement on the building site as a customer. You don't need to supervise the process because it's already built into the process. If you go to a car manufacturer, you don't go there to supervise that process. So why should you do it in the building process either? And the third and last thing that is most important, the cost for change order. It can easily be 10 or 15 % add-ons in the end because late changes, and that is crucial in the industrialized building to remove the urge, the need for doing late changes. So if you add these three parts, cost for money, lower engagement on the building site, and less need for change order, These three parts do the customer add on in the end for each project anyway. So when we compete with the offer of 50 million compared with the 45 million, they add on both of us. But we have to train them to remove the cost if you choose our offer. So it will stay with 50 million, and the other competitor would probably have 55 or 60 million. So the first-time customer, they don't believe me because they say, building industry, we know how it works. We know it will come and add on that. But when we have the repeating customers, they understand that it's feasible. So if I want you to bring something from me, so keep these three things in mind. So it's very crucial in order to be successful in other industrialized building. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stefan. And now we are at the point where we gather the whole panel. So Arlan and Richard, please join Stefan. And I have so many questions because I think this is so interesting and very nice. Now I'm standing a little behind you, but I hope you can hear me at least. So, but I have a couple of first questions that I'd like to ask you, and then after that I'll open up for the audience. And you in the audience, when you start thinking about questions now, try to phrase them pretty shortly, because we don't have too much time. So that's a little challenge to you. But so here's my first question. We've heard now from three very interesting and successful companies. I think all of you have really high ambitions, and you have been in the business for a long time. So I'm a little curious what your biggest challenges have been over the years, if you could sort of try to pinpoint some of them. And in addition to that, what has surprised you the most in your development of your companies, your concepts, and acting in industrialized construction? So it's two questions. You can answer both, or you can pick one. It's up to you. So biggest challenges and what surprised you the most? Who wants to start? Arlan, maybe?
Good call.
Good God. Let's see. The biggest challenge is, everything's a challenge, actually. But there is one thing that I have been surprised by. For us, on our journey, the challenges are, first was, how do you get a building that a city will actually allow you to build, right? And meet all the requirements associated with that, from inspections all the way through. That was hurdle number one. And then when we got through, we've been through it 5 times, but the first time we did that, that was a big hurdle. Getting a patent on an entire building was a huge accomplishment. But then when you turn to the field side of it, or the supply chain side of it, you're all we were all by ourselves, having to do everything ourselves, and the general contracting community was, no thanks. We've got stuff to do. It was busy, so credit to them. But we did find people that were willing to help us, or we found people who were willing to, that we could employ, that would do it. So I think the construction side and the integration side was tough, and is still tough for a new product like ours. The surprise was, on our side, was how quickly customers were willing to pivot out of something and into something else without really understanding it. As long as the cost was right, taking a building to net zero and finding someone to buy that with all new systems and all new gear, it shocked me how fast the real estate community is willing to make a switch if the cost is right. I was shocked by that. So.
Thanks, Arlan. Richard, maybe? Do you have any thoughts on these challenges and surprises?
Yeah, so challenges, I would say, is the unknown. We got into prefabrication and industrialized construction thinking we knew it all, right? We built lots of buildings and put together a lot of systems, but we run into, oh, didn't think about that, right? And even going through design over and pulling in experts into our processes, it's still new, or relatively new to construction. And so there's things we miss, and that's been our biggest hurdle, is to continue to learn from them. Because learning from them isn't cheap from a cost standpoint, from a resource standpoint, from a reputation standpoint. And so that's been some of our challenges, to continue to learn and evolve with the different building systems that we're engaging with. The shock is people's reaction to when it goes really well. And, you know, internally within our companies, it's like, yeah, of course it went really well. That's what we said we were going to do. But when it does go well to an outside company, to an outside contractor, to somebody who hadn't done it before, they're like, I thought you were like selling me smoke, you know, this smoke and mirrors kind of thing. But the reaction of it went fast and it went well and it saved time, it reduced risk on the project, kind of realizing we did what we said we were going to do is weirdly shocking to people.
And that's interesting, but I think in a way that says more about the traditional construction than about the industrialized construction. It's supposed to be like that, right? That we deliver what we have promised and so on. But unfortunately, our industry is more used to the risks and delays and cost overruns and stuff like that. So, but that's on them, right?
We get a lot of, you've been sandbagging this whole time.
Yeah, but it's interesting and very interesting to hear that that's a big surprise in a way. So Stefan, I think this touched a little on your talk as well.
And, I have two perspectives. The first one is to drive a family company in 100 years. It's a challenge to do the shifts of ownership and leadership, and to make the transitions over generations with the same culture, same attitude. And then we comes over to the second perspective, and it's when you to grow a company culture with the stamina and the urge to constantly improve. For some, it's tiresome. We're never finished. It's always something new. It's always changing. And for example, in the it doesn't be in the factory. It can be also on the building site. We have trained personnel to understand that finding a problem and find a solution to the problem and use this solution to make a profit and to make a useful source for improvement. That's an attitude who doesn't appeal to everybody, but to find those persons who are for real are interested in doing the change and be prepared to share the knowledge to the next colleague in line and help each other to be better. That is very, very crucial, and surprisingly, when it flows and it goes, we see very, very good results. So we try to nurture from that.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks. So my second question to you all would be around this topic. We are in Silicon Valley. We're at Stanford. In this environment, we can see and have seen over the years and decades massive innovation, paradigm shifts, and radical innovations, and fast-growing companies that has changed the world, you could, I think, argue. So we're in that environment. There's a lot of capital, and there's I think, a wish and hope that if we pour a lot of money over things, innovation will happen, and it should happen pretty fast, because we've seen it happen in other industries and so on. But your journeys are somewhat quite different, quite slow, step-by-step approach, securing what you have learned and working on that and so on. So it's maybe not a question, it's more an ask for reflection. The contrast between your journeys that I think are very successful, but to reflect on that contrast between where we are and what we can see around us here. Stefan wants to start, I think.
I have two reflections. The first is the legacy that comes with the family company. You need to carry the legacy forward and to be proud and to try to nurture it so we keep the reputation as a good family business and the customers will come back. So that is very, very long-term thinking. And the second thing is when you talk about innovation in the building industry, I don't know how regulations are in the US, but in Sweden we have a warranty time and we have a responsible time for up to 10 years. And you don't find so many cars that have a warranty for 10 years, maybe some. And the building is much more fragile and it's seldom produced. So how do you do innovation when you're putting a building on site with different weather conditions and different people doing the work? And the material supplier are promising some things and you bring the knowledge into the building, and how do you change things in an industry that is mature with material and you want to change it and you still are supposed to have the warranty in 10 years. So to change things quick, it's not so super easy and not so super smart either. So you need to do it in small steps in collaboration with the supply chain, with the supplier, with the manufacturer of material, the windows or stucco or wood or whatever. That is why it's so slow, I think. Because when you get punished on your fingers, one time you remember it and it hurts like hell.
Yeah, yeah. Arlan?
Yeah, I think I echo what Stefan said. You know, our journey was really driven by kind of an insight that if you change how you make something, you get to change what you make, and that's come about over a long period of time. And I think that's where we've spent our time, and I think there's a lot more opportunity as soon as you realize that when you change how you make something, you can dump the way the world does it, and therein lies some magic. And so how do you do that? Well, you have to do it one piece of the puzzle at a time, and we started with structure, and you got to get a structure to work, and you got to get a structure that you can fabricate in the factory and put together in the field, and it's still got to hold up an earthquake, and it's still got to do all the jobs it's got to do, but it's got to be faster, better, cheaper, right? And then from the structure, you start pushing the MEP stuff into it. Well, as soon as you do that, you got to go back and change the structure because you didn't anticipate all that stuff, and then you do it again. And so it's like running the pool table. You know, every shot sets up the next shot, and if you don't have it right, you don't make the next shot. And so you unwind and you go forward, and you unwind and you go forward, and you just do that. And you have to be insane enough to keep doing it for 16 years. What I think we've accomplished is an entirely new building system that does have the attributes the market's looking for, and that sets us up to really drive some scale, and the scale is a very difficult thing to achieve in this space, for sure.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Richard, any reflections on your...
Yeah, we always talk about innovation driving us, but we have to be disciplined in it, because our journey has been being everything to everyone, fulfilling every request, trying the new thing every couple of months. And so we tried that. We get a phone call, hey, can you do this? Yeah, sure, no problem. Well, that didn't go so well. All right, next thing, can you do this? Yeah, no problem. And we became this almost too broad stroking of companies. And so with our innovation and driving things forward, we have to be disciplined and almost say no more than yes. And I don't mean in a negative no. It's more, no, we can't be that provider to you. We can do this, and small iterations to it and steps in innovation that we get tied into. It's a new thing. It's a shiny object. What can you do different? And to your point of, changing the world in the construction industry, it takes time. It's not a fast turnaround, just where we've been and how we're going forward.
And probably that's a good thing, I think. Maybe we shouldn't take too big steps too fast, because we have seen, of course, some interesting initiatives didn't really work out, and maybe it was a little too big steps in a too short time. So I think what you have shown, what you have told us about, is a much more safe way to do it and to make sure that you are on the right track.
Yeah, I just experienced it myself 10 minutes ago watching your videos, which I didn't have. I want a video, right? But also, I see your processes, and I see what you guys are doing, and I instantly yes, more, we can do that. But that's kind of what drives us to failure sometimes, is we can do it all, and you see the next person innovating, so got to get on board. I want that robot you had, for sure, but that doesn't mean it fits into what we do and into our ecosystem.
Yeah, put it on the long-term Christmas wish list. That's the way to do it, maybe. Okay, thanks a lot. I think we should open up for the audience. We have a question over here.
Online questions? Is that?
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Okay. Our first question comes from Apurva Pasricha. She's from Cloud Apartments. What are the characteristics or archetypes of customers that you find become buyers for your service product offerings? Have you seen patterns in the people who say yes or to the people who end up saying no?
I can try and answer from our point of view, if I understand the question right. To turn down a customer is not so fun, but you need to do that sometimes. You can't provide for everybody, because some boundaries need to be addressed and to follow. And also when we talk about principles and be loyal to the structure, you can't build church towers and round houses in factory. At least we can't. So therefore we have to say no thank you to some customers. And also important to come in early. So if you come in too late, we often need to say thank you. We have to say no thank you. But come in early, then we can have a successful project for us and for the customer.
Thanks. Any more reflections or?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think what echoes Stefan's comments. I think for us it's an institutional player. We want to sell fleets, not planes, because as soon as you get somebody embedded in this process, you don't want to lose it and to have to start it over with another customer. The buildings can't be small; they got to be big. So you're going to run the supply chain. You got to take down 100 units minimum for us, but preferably 200, and multiple projects as a buyer. And so as soon as you jump into that scale of customer, first of all, it's not a lot of people in the United States, but that's who's now open to these ideas. At least that's what we see.
Thanks.
Last thing I'll add is our best customers are people who see our value, not just a cost or a dollar sign. Right, that it might be cost neutral, might cost a little more, but ultimately there's value in schedule savings, the warranty you spoke about, everything that comes along with what we're doing and what we're providing, not just that bottom dollar line. That never ends well.
Thanks. We have a question in the back. Oliver?
Hey guys, thanks so much for the amazing presentations. I have a comment and a question. You asked, why are we not innovating as fast as Silicon Valley is innovating? And what comes to mind for me immediately is regulation. The reason, the big difference between our industry and the software industry is that our regulation is, if you want to say, additive, and the software industry is subtractive. we have regulation framework, and you can only build what's inside that framework, and everything outside that framework is not allowed per se. There's nothing you can do. You can't just circumnavigate that. Whereas software development doesn't have regulation, and the government is catching up with it as it's being developed and saying, well, actually, maybe you cannot do that, but we don't know yet, so go ahead and just do it, and we'll see in 5 or 10 years maybe if it worked or didn't. Imagine it was the other way around.
Oliver,
Yeah.
I think you need to come to the question, please.
Okay. So
Otherwise,
sorry.
it will be too... And please say your name and organization as well.
Yeah, my name is Odie, I'm with Intelligent City. So my question is, because here's 2 people from the US and 1 from Europe, is it different, Stefan, in Europe or in specific countries that you feel like across the country you can build? It's more aligned? Do you see it here being more difficult?
I'm not super familiar with the US regulation, but I know there is a big difference regarding quality inspections. And in Sweden we can do what we call self-control. And here you have a third-party inspector who goes through many things, and it can be troublesome to make a quick flow in that context. So there is a difference. And the building codes, I don't know if they're very, very different, but we need to relate to them. But what we try to do is to collaborate with the policymakers and to be in the branch organizations to explain the hurdles we have as an industrialized player, so they understand for national rules, not municipality rules, and so on.
Thank you, Stefan. I think we have now a lot of hands. I think, who do you know, Alonso, who's first in line? Okay. Name and organization, Juan Carlos.
Juan Carlos. Juan Carlos Cabreiro, Colegio de Aparejadores de Madrid, the Construction Engineers Association in Spain. Short question, financing industrialized construction. We need to finance and to get the tools to finance the construction, to get a positive cash flow in our operations. How to solve this problem, because in Spain we have large companies like ACS, Ferrovial, any others, and they have they get paid and they get paid with more days.
And the
but
question?
Now, how to solve these things? How to solve, or what your tools for solving this financial problem?
We go, maybe Arlan is for you.
So we self-financed the first decade because we talked to angels and we talked to a lot of folks about corporate financing, and it didn't make any sense to us because we didn't know when we would solve these things. And that worked out okay. It was hard, but it worked out okay. On the project side, and so we're continually raising capital, and that changed pretty radically after COVID. In fact, it's extremely difficult, and we're still in the middle of that. Project financing has been much easier. So Goldman Sachs financed 303 Battery. The City of Seattle was happy to take it. We have enough data now on terms of our performance that the risks are decreasing, and so a regular bank would finance a building, pretty straight over tackle. They're really financing the borrower, not the technology. But our technology is no longer a barrier to getting financing for a borrower. So we've kind of cleared that hurdle, but we still struggle on the corporate side, for sure.
We have one more online question.
This question is from Todd Mercer. How do you scale manufacturing, going from a prototype project with inconsistent production flow to a consistent full-scale production flow? Seems like the factory is at risk of start/stop during this transition before you get a consistent flow of customers and projects.
So how you can scale from a prototype project? Yeah, Richard, maybe?
Happy to try. So ours is through a pretty intensive mock-up process to make sure that what's being requested and what we've designed is buildable. And we're not creating snowflakes. We talk about that a lot, that if a demand is 250 objects, it can't be 250 different objects. and really zeroing in and honing in the design so it can be manufactured and not just built every single time differently. And so prototyping, mock-ups, testing, that's how we get to the point of, can we build this in a repeatable fashion?
Thank you. So let's see, we have a couple of questions in the back. Margot, name and organization, please.
Hi, Margot Sutherland from the Stanford Business School. I have a question about benchmarking, and I'm wondering how benchmarking, if you do it, or if you might think about doing it, how it might feed into your marketing.
So benchmarking and comparing with other industries, other companies, maybe? Anyone? Stefan, you mentioned the car industry and so on.
How to explain this? We have two factories. One factory is starting very, very small. And we had that in the beginning of the 80s, building blocks, wall elements. And it was natural to us to build with elements, and we trained and we added on floor elements and ceiling elements, and after, for some reason, we chose to go modular. And the flow to change from the first factory to the second factory was that we had a building system, we had a technical platform to choose to work with. So when we decided to build the new factory, we had all the questions, answer to the questions. So we knew what to order when we talked about the flow of material and installing machinery and so on. So to have the backbone of knowledge was very important when we took the decision to go full. If you start from scratch, to start with the blank paper and invest in a 500,000 square feet industrial area, it's very, very tricky. You need to have the story with the slow grow behind you, I think.
Thanks. I think we had one question over here from Santiago, and then we have one in the back from Margie. Santiago, name and organization, please.
Thank you. I'm Santiago Osa with ADL Ventures. My question is for Arlan. Curious, so everyone will like your project and product as long as the price is right. What did you do between version 1 and 10 that ultimately led that to be under market rate? And if a lot of those factors were external to your product?
Wow, that's a great question. It's probably a 10-hour answer. What did we do? We applied a process that was, we worked in small teams, so it was very tight. We achieved an objective, like I said, and then we backed up and we did it again, we did it again, and we did it again. We could not see, I will tell you that I coined a phrase years ago, you got to climb the mountain you're on, right? If you think this is going to work and you think this is the place you got to get to, you got to go all the way to the top of that and get the result. And the magic that happens is when you get to the top, you figure out half the stuff you did was not right, but you can sure see something different from there. While you're on the climb, don't waste your time about what you could do differently. Get all the way through something. Get on the top. You say, okay, now I got to be over there. You pack your stuff over there and you climb another mountain, and from there you go, oh, we could be over there. And I can tell you that I was pretty adamant by the time we did version 3 that we had this figured out. And there's no way we could see version 10, version 3, or even version 4, or even version 5. And the real driver in our lives was money. We didn't have any money. And so we were forced to do things with stuff you can buy in the hardware store and you can do with a drill motor and a template. And we played the hell out of that to the point where now you can do an entire building that simply, that without no infrastructure. I mean, I look at Stefan's factory and I go, holy smokes, we crush it if we had all that stuff. We don't have any of that stuff, or his stuff.
We have factory envy.
We just have people with drill motors and templates. That's that simple. And we did that because we don't have any money. Never had any money. But yeah, it's you got to get it all the way through. You got to reassess. Then you do it again. Then you do it again. and just don't give up.
Thanks a lot, Arlan. We have the last question from the back. Margie, I think, but full name and organization.
Hi, Margie O'Driscoll from the Center for Innovation. Thank you all for really some insightful comments. So here in the Bay Area, we have an acute housing shortage, and we have just lost 16,000 housing units in Los Angeles. It's an enormous crisis in the state of California as we think about housing. What advice would you give the governor and Mayor Bass about how to use your systems to accelerate the housing needs for people, especially in Southern California?
Advice for the politicians.
Well, I'd say they should have been here at this meeting, and they should hire him, and they should hire us, and they should hire Stefan. That's what I'd say. Let's go.
And my suggestion is we have a market that is very closed in the building industry. The people who has got the land has the key to the project, and they tend to start when the money is good enough. So the key is the land. So if the municipality will do some changes, it's a handout land, so much land that the price will go down. It can be a solution.
My advice would be don't be cost-driven. That we're quick to solution and get into solving the problem rather than looking at it from a couple different angles. And sometimes when it gets into government projects, it's bottom dollar, bottom line. You know, how can I make this financially work? I'm sure it's almost impossible to not drive to the bottom line in a government setting, but there's other values that can drive to that same bottom line if you look at it holistically. That there's lots of parts and pieces into the process. It would be so hard to tell this to them, but like open your eyes. There's more options, and look, we have forums, we have think tanks, we have universities studying these types of things. So we should be leaning into it and not just looking for the best financial gain.
Thanks a lot. We actually have time for one more question, and that will be from Martin Fisher.
Yeah, actually for you, Richard, yeah. Because you mentioned many things that you need to, or have started to do to become an IC company. One was to pay attention to design and design technology, but you're a builder. So how is that going?
Do you mean it from how's our influence?
How are you bringing a design mindset, design thinking, design tools into an organization that's not really used to those kinds of tools and that kind of way of looking at things?
Yeah, it's working through collaboration, honestly, and people who understand the value that we're bringing and leaning into it, not being so rigid of contractor versus designer versus owner. Like it's not that anymore. And I think, like my colleagues, you have design as part of your DNA, not just a builder. Tell me what to build, I'll build it. It's actually the opposite. We pull in design teams, we hire designers. They're on our staff now, which is very different of an approach than we've had traditionally in construction.
We're actually, while the economy for real estate was in the tank, that's actually for us been a good thing, in that there's a lot of stranded assets that have significant money spent on them, and there's anxious people trying to figure out how to make it work. And so we can do a test fit. So we have a template, we can do a test fit, we can take the owner's program off of a typical floor plan and a section that tells us how big the building is. And then we can actually model that with our units. So we have a call and say, okay, here's our units that we would put in place of your units, which typically match pretty closely. And then we put the building, our program on their site inside their envelope, and we're typically able to do that in a week or so and give them a price. And that actually is pulling the market because these stranded assets got no place to go with today's construction costs. So, but if somebody says, geez, I like this unit, but I want to change something, the answer is no. We don't change anything. Our units are, and there's 30 of them, whatever the number there are, that go from a studio at 300 square feet to a 3-bedroom at 1,300 square feet. It's all the same parts. And so you can have lots of variation, but if somebody says they want something different in the building than we do, we're not interested in that.
Last comment from Stefan, or you touched on this?
Oh, I think this gentleman has covered up most of the things.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks to the panel.